Good? My stomach's making weird noise. I was like, oh god. Dinner is just rumbling.
These events are catered.
I wish. A little charcuterie board. Get a little charcuterie. Okay, well, welcome to the show.
Wow,
welcome. Thank you for having me here with you.
Yeah.
It's great. That totally threw you off. Threw me off too. I don't know why I said it.
Well, hey.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, well, thank you for coming, Maddie. It's a pleasure to take over the show from you.
Thank you. I mean, you could, honestly. Anyone, I think you could do it. But let's get into it a little bit. Okay, so young professional minds, how are you?
I'm good.
That's good.
Very professional.
Yeah, very, very professional.
Very young.
Very young and very enthusiastic. I love it. Yeah. So for the fine folks at home watching this, what do you do, Zach?
I do many things.
You do?
I'm a man of many titles. But I am the Dungeons & Dragons facilitator and youth engagement coordinator for Sarnia Lambton Rebound. I'm also program support for when they need me. I serve on their IDEA committee, their Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility committee.
Yes, you do. Wow.
And many, many other things
All
outside of my work.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, let's talk about that because I know only like a little bit, and we have like good chats all the time. But what do you do outside of work again? Like, what's the list? Because you are just as like me, like just fully like webbed out into the community, which I love.
Yeah, it's a long list of things. The one that I feel is the most dignified fancy title is I am the vice chair for the Sarnia Lambton Federal EDA here in Sarnia.
Amazing. Look at you go. And like quite young to be doing that.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think at least in recent history for the Liberals, I'm the youngest. That's part of what I ran my platform on was trying to motivate young liberals to be engaged in the political system here.
Which is incredible. Like, good for you for doing that because it's not an easy task. Politics, not an easy task at all. So what do you do for self-care in that? In between all the things you do here at Rebound and then all the things you do outside of it, what do you do for you?
Spotify.
Spotify. That's
there we go. Promotional.
Yeah, there you go.
I have like, I don't know, 200 playlists that I cycle between.
Oh my gosh.
I listen to too much music while I write. I also do board games with friends. I write. I think I just said that. But I do. I write.
I know you're a fantastic writer.
Oh, thank you.
So the thing that I love the most is that you do D&D here.
Yes.
And you teach youth that, but then you also play a lot of board games outside. We've had you on before, like, and talking about all that kind of fun stuff with all the games that were all laid out. And so I would love to hear more about that in terms of what inspires you with D&D at Rebound.
What inspires me with D&D at Rebound? The youth.
Hella fair.
Yeah.
Hella fair.
It started about 10 years ago when I started playing D&D with my friends. I noticed a lot of social growth amongst the players, and I went, hey, that's kind of weird. I know this individual, and like, I don't see them practicing these skills in other settings, so is it because of D&D? And kind of researching and looking it up online, it turns out that tabletop role-playing games help with life skills, socialization, communication, teamwork. And so I pitched the program to Rebound about having a Dungeons & Dragons program.
Which is amazing. I'm so happy about that.
Right? Ever innovative Rebound is. And they said, let's give it a test run. And in 2020, we did. And we've been going strong since, and it's amazing to see what each youth takes away. Some of them, it is communication. Some of them, it's being able to socialize with their peers. Some of them, it is quite literally just showing up to have fun and flex their creative muscle. And that's cool too.
Which is amazing. Like, I love D&D just because of my theater background, so I get like really immersed into the role, get all the accents. Some people say I take it way too far, but that's okay. I get really into it.
I mean, you did great as a fairy for our staff game.
Thank you. I loved it. I convinced everybody to make choices. But I also think that it's quite impressive that you took something that used to be known as like a very satanic kind of thing and very culty type of thing and changed it into something that can actually empower youth. So what made you draw that connection beyond what you saw in your own friend group? Like when you were writing that proposal, like did you think about the whole satanic element of it?
Oh yes. So for anybody who's not familiar,
Yeah, let's
the-
deep
the-
dive. Let's do a deep dive.
Deep dive. History with me. Throughout the 80s, there was a movement, usually led by religious groups, called the Satanic Panic, that kids who played Dungeons and Dragons were worshiping Satan and his army of devils.
Which is wild.
Which is a little wild, because what D&D was actually advocating for at that time was to go out and defeat the devils,
Yes.
defeat the demons,
Let's
resist
kill 'em.
evil.
Burn them.
Right?
Go.
Be on
Yeah,
the side of good.
absolutely.
So it's humorous that's what the thought was. And so I was concerned about that. I'm like, oh, we're going to be pitching this to the community. Like, is this going to be a concern that,
Well, and it's an old town kind of thing, you know?
yeah, are we going to get calls from people going like, I don't want my kid worshiping Satan? And I'll be like, no, they're not worshiping Satan, I promise you.
We have no agenda.
They're
just
trying to figure out how to open a locked
Exactly.
door in a game. That's it.
That's all they need is trying to find the treasure. That's it.
Find the treasure.
Yeah.
Work together.
Oh my God, yeah. Honestly, 'cause that's something I always thought about because I knew D&D without that reference. I think the first time I knew the reference, actually, which is like really embarrassing, is from Riverdale.
Yeah, you
when
know
they
what?
do that like 80s episode, and then they have
Yeah.
like the where they drink out of the cup and stuff.
Yes.
And then when I saw it in Stranger Things, I was like, oh, okay. So I'm very happy that like pop culture kind of taught me that, because I would have had no idea, to be completely honest. And so do you find that the pop culture references actually like help you out with D&D Rebound, like get more youth involved because of those references?
Yes and no. I think D&D has always been kind of a pillar for, quote unquote outcast, creative
yes,
kids.
Absolutely.
um,
Nerds. We can
theater
say it. We
nerds.
can say
Yeah.
it. Nerds.
So it's always kind of been there, and they've just stumbled upon it without feeding into the mainstream. I think the mainstream opened it up to more people to be able to find their creative outlets, to find their opportunities.
Oh, I love
to
that.
explore, yeah.
And now you get to do that through your work.
And now I get to do that through my work. I very much take the humble brag if I get paid to play D&D with kids. Now, obviously, it's
Oh.
much more than that, but
But still, that's a sweet gig.
It
That
is
is
a pretty
sweet
sweet
gig. Okay, so I know that you love board games and you love just like gaming with friends and D&D with friends. And I would love to know, like, why does that bring you so much joy?
throughout high school, I used to joke that I had a nickname called the Collector,
Oh,
where
that's
if
a cool nickname.
it was a very
That's, like,
cool
very
nickname.
onomatopoeic.
I enjoyed it. It was that I would take somebody from every clique of people and bring them into my little group. I'd collect them.
Oh, just collecting people.
I'm just collecting people. Oh, you're a really interesting jock. Here, you come hang out with
That's
the
like
musical
the,
nerd
the
I've
Chitty
got.
Chitty Bang Bang Child Catcher.
I'm the child catcher. Gosh. But no, I was the collector. And so board games was a really unique way to bring people who didn't really have a lot of similarities together at a table to talk and have fun and find those deeper meanings. My core, I believe every human can connect to another human if
Absolutely.
they take the time.
Absolutely.
And board games take time. Everybody knows this.
Take a lot of time.
They take a lot of time.
Yes.
But you get to know people. You get to know like, oh, this person's just as intense playing a board game as I am. I'm gonna have fun playing off this energy.
Oh, yes, very much so.
Or like, ooh, that person sat really quiet. They're being real sneaky. I want to try to topple
Sus.
them.
Yeah, they're
because
sus.
I want to outplay them.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that starts a lot of socialization, that like getting to know people. So board games have always been a chance for me to be able to show parts of myself to others that you wouldn't see in a quick 15-minute interaction, but kind of
super
comes
fair.
out in a board game.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also to give other people the chance to show parts of themselves they wouldn't get to in like a public work, school, whatever setting.
That's actually such a great point, because I love game nights with my friends too. And I often find that like a lot of the games reflect like society or reflect your life. And so for you, like what is like your like go-to when you're like with new people? Like when you don't know the group that well, what is your go-to game to play?
Oh, that's hard.
It is a hard one.
That is a hard one. I always I feel like to kind of test the waters of where everybody is, it's Cards Against Humanity.
Oh my god, I was like, it's Cards Against Humanity.
It's Cards Against Humanity. Or it's another one I have called Red Flags, where you...
Oh, yes, I think you were talking about it, yeah.
Yes, where you kind of build out your ideal date for this person, and then somebody else sabotages it with red flags.
Which is amazing. Yeah. I think that's so funny. I haven't played that one yet, but I really, really want to. Where can I get that one?
Oh, I had to send somebody to South Carolina to get it. Because it is
only in South Carolina.
It is very difficult to get in Canada.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna borrow from you then.
I was gonna say, yeah, feel free.
That sounds so much fun. You could also do that without like the board game itself. You can just like have fun with it, like you know, all that kind of stuff. But I think that's so incredible because I feel like also a lot of people don't play board games that much anymore. I feel like technology has really taken over. Like when I was growing up, I remember in elementary school, board game nights were like the biggest thing. Then in high school, like Super Smash Bros. Like took over and Mario Kart and all that kind of fun stuff. Do you find like a difference between the two, or do you think both of them cause like the same amount of connection?
I think they cause a similar amount of connection. I remember bonding with my friends playing Super Smash Brothers tournaments.
So good.
And like, you know, bonding over like the weird characters nobody else played, like Pit.
Oh,
like it was like, you got that one guy who plays Pit, you're connected.
That's fair. That's super fair. That is really, and then you can trash talk each other.
You can trash talk.
Yeah.
I think as games started to become split screen, cooperative, it started to offer more opportunities for bonding in video gaming.
That's super fair.
It wasn't just you know, breaking bricks or, you know, fighting an angry monkey
or
who's
just
throwing barrels at
Pong,
you.
just going side to side. Yeah, fair.
You started to get an opportunity to create that core friend group. And then I think for like millennials, games stepped away from cooperative. It was like, oh yeah, we're not offering split screen. It's all online, pay to play.
Club Penguin.
Yeah, right? Like you do get some interaction, but it's like you alone at your house while somebody else alone at their house plays.
Yeah, that's super fair.
Yeah.
Because I also feel like people often refer to like those online spaces as a community.
Yes.
I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if it's truly a community. I have a really hard time with that. What do you think? Can there be an online community?
Yeah, I think absolutely there can be a community. I think, though, we as humans are social creatures.
Yes.
Being able to look at your face, see your reaction, see your nonverbal cues.
There's a lot.
It strengthens the bond more so than being able to laugh at a reference via text.
Yeah, exactly.
You will absolutely still bond reading those messages on a messaging board, wherever.
Yeah.
But actually having that face-to-face personal interaction, I personally feels deepens and strengthens that bond.
I agree with that. But then someone also brought a good point, because I was talking about this the other day, and that people who have accessibility issues or like high social anxiety, people on the spectrum, they find online communities a lot more beneficial for them, and I completely agree with that. Do you have any online communities right now?
Yes, well, our program.
Oh yeah, fair. It's a virtual space.
We offer our D&D Rebound program virtually for that very reason. So that way people who maybe don't have the socioeconomic means to come into a city to large social groups can come onto this online space and engage. Somebody who may be navigating, you know, social anxiety or severe anxiety can still come online and just type in with us and still engage and enrich themselves in a community.
Oh, I love that. That's very sweet.
Yeah. And then TikTok.
Yeah. TikTok is like, there's so many subgroups and subcommittees and sub-communities, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? Again, I don't watch TikTok that often, so for me, I'm like so out of the loop. But do you have any TikTok communities or any recommendations?
Well, I mean, the D&D TikTok community is very strong.
That one's big. Yeah, that one's very strong.
Personally, I love, so every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, Adventures in Ardia, AARDIA, does their Roll for Sandwich series. Roll for Sandwich. And it's using like D20 dice, and they have a list of randomized toppings and ingredients, and they roll and build a sandwich from it. So. Oh
my God, has there any been like disgusting ones?
Oh, absolute nightmares. things that haunt my dreams.
Which one haunts the most?
I don't know if I'm remembering this one quite correctly, but I think it was peanut butter and like a horrific ketchup blend.
Oh,
And I went, no, but you know, the man's
That's
committed.
some Fear Factor shit. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, committed to the bit. He ate it.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So-
Good for him.
But then that community kind of sprawled out massively. So there's the roll for sandwich, which is kind of the origin of it all.
Yeah.
And then there's roll for barbecue, roll for ice cream.
Oh, so it just started this
roll
whole
for smoothie.
trend.
Yes.
I might have to try that though, because I know you
Yes.
had a great suggestion for doing rebound TikTok of like rolling for like certain activities and having fun with it.
Yes.
And I think it is quite like engaging and it is fun. And I'm happy that TikTok has kind of evolved, because I think in 2020 it was mainly just like dances, and now I feel like it's involved in like engagement and just like kind of building a following, which is kind of nice. You feel more connected to the person,
Absolutely.
which I like. But for you, I know connection's really important.
Yes.
And I've known that since like we were kids, basically. And so I want to know, like, where does that stem from? Like, does your family like do like game nights all the time? Like, do you have like a really good core group of cousins or something? Like, where did it all start?
It actually comes from the absence of other people. So this is a bit of maybe a downbringer for a second.
No, not at
was
all.
that as I grew up, I didn't have a lot of family. They either weren't around or had passed. So I didn't get a lot of opportunities, but there's one thing I absolutely cherish, and that is my paternal grandparents would come over on Christmas Eve every year, and we'd play a game called Stock Ticker. And there's nothing like your
Wait, I'm sorry, stock ticker?
Stock Ticker. It's a game where you play the stock market, the rise and trends, and like you roll the dice, and it gets violent, Maddie.
That's amazing. I
It-
love that.
And there's nothing quite like your grown grandfather slamming his hands on the table, looking you, a 6-year-old child, in the eyes and going, if I'm going down, you're going down with me.
That is actually amazing.
And so it was those moments of being able to bond and connect with these people I didn't get to see a lot that inspired me to start creating games at school, where I got to connect with people and get to know them. And these people were around more. So if anybody needed a game, you know, for the playground, they'd come to me and they'd be like, Zach, we need a new game. Gotcha, we're playing, you know, Shipwreck.
Oh my
Half
God,
of
so even at like 6 years old, you were like a little dungeon master?
I was
just
a little
running
dungeon
around?
master, yeah, running around.
That is incredible. Oh my gosh, I actually love that because you are such a great leader and you do like really utilize your leadership in everything that you do.
Oh,
and it's
thanks.
so cool that that's just like a natural thing. And it all started because of the stock market. Like that's actually wild,
Because of my family sat around a table screaming at each other.
which is amazing. But I think that brings up a good point too, that like, I feel like when you play those kinds of games, it doesn't matter about age, it doesn't matter about gender, it doesn't matter about who you are in this world, your humanity just comes out.
Yes.
So what's another example of like when you've just seen full humanity, like your grandfather just screaming at you?
Okay, so this was in high school, and I didn't know this about this one individual, but we were playing D&D, and when I play D&D, my characters build themselves. So I kind of come in with a core idea of what I want a non-player character to be, and this is a character that interacts with everybody else at the table, and I go, okay, build your own life, and for some of them, they kind of take on their own identity, they take on their own person, and one of my friends at the table met a character that was trans, and in their real life they had never met somebody that was trans.
okay.
They'd never even considered that perspective of another person's life, and so they didn't share anything that night, but a couple months later they came and they started asking me questions about like what is, you know, like,
Yeah,
you
what
know,
is this
what is
identity?
the trans community, what
Yeah.
is this identity, because they're like, I tried looking up online, but I didn't know
Well,
where
and back then they didn't have a lot, unfortunately.
yeah, and they didn't know where to start talking, and so they started with me, and I, you know, knowing different advocates and groups in the community, made those connections for them, and they kind of found more about themselves in this journey.
Oh,
that they
that's
just
beautiful.
they just had the opportunity to see lens of a different human being and went, hey, what is that? And kind of went on that journey of their own identity, but at first just trying to understand what other humans exist in the world that
Yeah.
they've never encountered before.
Oh, I think that's beautiful. And I do think D&D and like games in general have that like effect which is like so cool that you got to witness it at such a young age too. And good for you for facilitating that in the proper way, because I feel like a lot of young people wouldn't know how to handle that. So like, good for you. That's incredible.
And
You're so mature.
And it's important to note, fake characters in a game don't represent real people in the world.
Yes, and that is a really, really, really good point. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So through all of this, like D&D and games like that, and like really like kind of leading your schoolyard in this, do you find yourself as an advocate in your everyday life? Or is that just when you're like being D&D dungeon master?
Oh, I'm always advocating.
Yes.
One of my favorite words is accountability. I love accountability. I love advocacy. When we can help others, we help ourselves. There's a popular saying, I believe its origins is Sudanese, Ubuntu. Through others, I find myself.
Oh, I love that.
And that is something that has stuck with me for a long time. And it's always been, if I help others, I help myself.
Yeah.
Even if I don't see it at first, even if I don't, whatever, there's a long-term yield. So even if you're the most selfish person in existence, your core is just everything I do it for me. Helping others does help you.
Oh, I love that. I totally agree with that. I'm one that like volunteers all the time, tries to go out in the community and help out as much as I can. And I love that that's like a saying, because in the healing journeys, often like therapists and counselors will say like getting your foot in the community is the most important part of healing. Because I do think every relationship teaches you something, whether you like it or not, whether you like the other person, whoever you're in a relationship with is going to teach you exactly what you need to know, and they're there for a reason.
Yes.
Yeah, so what's the greatest lesson you've learned from that?
Oh.
I know, that's a big question. That's a big question.
That's a big question, because every person is a learner and a mentor. And they're that at the same time. Whether they mean to teach a lesson, if they mean to give advice, they do.
Yeah.
Inadvertently. And at the same time, they're taking things in. So I guess the greatest lesson for me is that, we hit on it a bit earlier, is that every human can connect to each other, because every human has something to offer.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lesson for us to take away. Even if it's something like, ooh, nope, I don't like that.
Yeah.
Or if it's us offering something to them where they're like, wow, that really, made me think differently on something. Whether we intend to or not, we're constantly having an effect with the people around us.
Yeah, which I love. And that's why for me, like the biggest lesson I take away from that is just to celebrate the other human. Like even if it's in conflict, even if it's like, we're all just chill, hanging out, it's celebrating the humanity in each person. That's the most important part to take away. Because I feel like a lot of people, once they find like their golden ticket in life, when they align themselves with their purpose, they're like, well, this is the one way of life that's going to lead you to being successful and all of this. When in reality, like we need everyone in the roles that they're in and serving their own purpose and letting them find their own path in order for us to even have humanity in general. Because if we're all the same, then we're not going to evolve. Because the only way we evolve is when we're frictioning against each other, which happens all the time.
Yep.
But yeah, and I find like, especially because you were in like politics and stuff like that, do you see that very often? Like even within like your own party?
Yes. So, I say this a lot to my other liberal board members. I go, I was a hardliner NDP because I viewed that was socialism, that was the only way that I could make change in politics.
Absolutely, yeah.
That every other party didn't really represent that. And then I had to kind of come to terms with myself where I went, no, people make a party. We're not voting for, in our system, Justin Trudeau. No, our vote happens locally. Whoever we vote to represent us
absolutely
counts towards government.
Oh, retweet on that one.
Right.
Yep.
So I started having to look at the people in my community and challenging myself. So maybe, at the top tier federal policies, I align more with NDP beliefs and values and policies that are put forward. But locally, the opportunities to me may not be what I'm looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
And that led me to the Liberals. So it's important that we look at our communities, because that's what enacts change at a provincial, at a federal level. Politics is what we make it.
Absolutely.
Who we vote for, who we influence here, starts to spread out around us.
Yeah.
And the people we elevate here and the people we work with in other communities and elevate there build and strengthen those communities. And that is what creates movement. That is what creates change.
I totally agree with that. It always drives me nuts when people are like, this party versus this party. I'm like, no, it's all about who you are right now in your community and what you're seeing within your own climate.
Yep.
Like, I cannot stand when people are like, yeah, but in Ottawa, I'm like, I don't care. I care about Sarnia. I care about what's happening here, and I care about how we move forward as a community. And that's how you have to do it. Because some people get distracted.
They do. And what we can control is what's around us, what we know, what we live on a daily experience. I can't speak to what somebody lives to daily in Ottawa.
Oh, that's super fair. That's super fair. So do you think that is kind of why board games and games are like so beneficial? Is because it really brings you into that.
It brings you to the table.
Yeah.
Here's the biggest thing. It brings you to the table.
It does.
It forces you to sit across, maybe work with somebody you'd never worked with before, but now you're on a team to win this fake world's game. And that means the world to you in that moment.
It is all that matters is just making sure I win.
So you're going to find ways to win with that person. And that's personally what I believe in my political advocacy we need to do in politics.
I completely agree.
We need to come to the table, people of various different political ideologies, to win the game.
Yeah, exactly. And like, honestly, a lot of people tend to think that these games are just like silly and thrown away, but I think of like Monopoly, and I think of like life, and I think of Risk. Like, there's so many games that actually mirror life and actually like kind of show you what it means to make choices and what paths, like when you say yes to this, that means this path is closed and you got to keep going, especially in life. That happens all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And so for you to sit down at a table and actually have that experience, is that something that you genuinely look forward to? Or do you feel like you have to like muster everybody's energy to like get there?
I feel like everybody wants to play a game. It's just what the hurdle is. Is it a game where you have to learn a lot of instructions first to play it, or is it a game you can just jump right in? Because everybody's at different energy levels from living life.
Absolutely.
So it just depends. But I think at the drop of the hat, anybody is willing to play a game, give it a chance, and then might find something shocking and be like, oh, wow, this is actually really fun. And I really enjoyed connecting with this person.
Yeah. So for anyone who's watching who really wants to start game nights or to start anything like that, what is your advice to them?
I guess the biggest thing is find a game that is appeasing to you. For some people, they might like dice games, they might like card games, they might like board games. Maybe they want to sit down and play a tabletop RPG role-playing game. That's up to them. That's kind of finding where they're at. Then it's finding people to start with. And that may not be people that you're like, oh, 100%, I want to spend an hour sat at a table with this person.
Yeah.
But maybe it's you challenging yourself and going, well, maybe this is a chance for me. I've been wanting to reach out to this person and do something with them. Maybe this game is a way to do that. There's a lot of places where you can go, sit down, play a game for, an hour or so, and then head out. There's board game shops in your local community. Maybe start there. Take a look there. Talk to the staff. Talk to other people who are perusing the section. Ask first. Don't just dive right in, but be like,
ask,
hey.
don't tell.
Ask, don't tell.
I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so this is the last question.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so for friend groups who have been together for like ever, like they're day ones kind of thing.
Gotcha.
What game would you suggest for them? Yeah, because like that's a different kind of thing than like people who just newly know each other.
Yeah. If you've known each other for a long time, you know what each other's humor is like, you know each other, I do recommend Red Flags. It's great for beginners where you're just trying to figure out who everybody is. Now, you're debating against each other's first dates. You're advocating for your own. You're trying to pull on like personal connections.
I actually love that. I think that's a great way to spend a night. I really want to get this game now. Like legitimately, I really, really want to.
We need to have a game night.
Oh my God, yes we do. Absolutely. You're going?
Well, to the crowd here, not the audience at home.
All right, well, thank you so much, Zack. We
Thank you.
really enjoyed it. So thank you for coming.
Of course. Thanks for
Bye,
having me.
guys.
Bye.
Bye. I just hit my knee and it went up. Ooh.